What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We're here. We are 2 days into a protocol that we're not going to go deep into and talk about today. We have a different topic, but I got a tea in front of me. I'm trying to drink 2 gallons of water today. I peed 3 times in the middle of the night last night because I drank 2 gallons of water yesterday.
Yeah. We're surviving. We're not thriving.
Yes. It's different.
It is different. No, it's not bad. We're excited for this because, and actually, I guess it does go hand in hand with the topic we're going to talk about today. But after this is going to be not much more lenient.
Yeah.
We're still going to be in a pretty strict protocol for the next 8 weeks. And that's going to be a gut health related protocol.
Yes.
What's on your teas? I'm curious. It's almost like fortune cookies. We've got peppermint and dandelion in here with a little lemon.
Say that peppermint, I can taste peppermint. I was like, wow, it's so minty.
I love it.
Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Talking to plants is one way of talking directly to spirit.
A lot about plants and nature that you're getting. Okay. The creation, are these all? I guess they're all about plants.
Yeah.
The creation of 1,000 forests is in 1 acorn. The plants have enough spirit to transform our limited vision. Plants, plant medicine. Love it.
We do.
Let's get into today's topic because I think it is I think more people struggle with this than they do hormonal issues and don't even really acknowledge it.
Yeah, this is one of the bigger pieces, especially, men, we definitely deal with this in some degree and whatnot, but you hear women express this even more, right? Because I feel like women are a little bit more in touch with how they feel, also with having menstrual cycles and all that stuff. This comes up and you're probably, okay, he's kind of getting somewhere. You might have already guessed it, but we're talking about bloat today. And really, we're going to talk about some of the tips and strategies and some methods to utilize to remove bloat, right? Because bloat's no fun. When we have bloat, we feel gross. We don't put certain clothes on because our belly's extended and we're walking around like it's, we're in the first trimester and when we just had a bagel. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that and what causes our bloat. How do we deal with it? How does it make us feel? And ultimately those tips that we can utilize to get the bloat away.
Yeah. And apologies too, if we're a little bit slower or we're not as sharp. There's no coffee on this flush.
There's zero coffee.
And I feel like typically before we go into a podcast, we have a little bit of some sort of little caffeine floating through us. But nonetheless, I was talking with a girl on a call and she mentioned how she deals with a lot of bloat. And she said that she struggles to get intimate with her partner because she feels she's always so gassy. That would really stink. I have not been that bloated before to that extent, but I know that it's a common thing, especially if you're dealing with unresolved gut issue that's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it can affect your relationships. And especially as a woman, I think the reason why menstrual cycles and we're a little bit more in tune with our body, but also when you're bloated as a woman, you just feel less feminine and sexy and confident. And so it can really affect you. And for men even too, it affects your energy levels and your mood. It really affects a lot.
Yeah. It just affects your whole day and how you show up and, your confidence, your self-esteem. You're probably more than likely a little bit more irritable, short-fused around coworkers, your kids, your husband, the person you're dating, whatever it may be, right? We're just not ourselves when we don't feel normal. A lot of women kind of just normalize that feeling too. It's like, oh, fuck, I'm bloated again. Just ate lunch. It's just, I'll be bloated for the next 3 hours. And then finally it'll go away. It doesn't have to be that way, right? We don't have to feel like it's just a normal thing of being a woman that when I eat lunch or when I have this food or when I indulge in that, I have to put up with this multiple hour, uncomfortable, annoying, just unsettling feeling in my belly every day, or sometimes even just half of the month.
Yeah.
Right?
Or when you go out to eat specifically, I know a lot of women that are afraid to go out to eat because they're afraid of the bloat that might come with eating a food source that isn't perfectly clean or not cooked by them. And living in fear of that, or if you're going on vacation and you're afraid that you're not going to like the way you look in a bikini because you're super bloated. I've definitely had that. I think we've all had periods of that. And it sucks. Like it really, really sucks. So it's not something to normalize. It's not something to let go unresolved. And not just because bloating doesn't look very good or doesn't feel very good, but what else is happening inside of your body because you're bloated? I mean, that's just a sign that your GI health is likely very off. And our gut is literally kind of the center of our health, I would say.
Yeah.
And if you are always bloated or you're not properly digesting your food, or you could have nutrient deficiencies because you're not absorbing and properly digesting the food you're eating,
right,
and getting those nutrients. So you can run into nutrient deficiencies, which can cause a cascade of other feelings, low energy, sleep problems, things like that. And then on top of that too, I mean, we excrete like excess estrogen through our stool. So you can recirculate your estrogen, ladies, back into your bloodstream. And most of us are estrogen dominant anyway, so we don't need that. And it's where most of our immune system is housed too. Our serotonin's in there. Right. So like really it's kind of where it all starts. And if you're trying to tackle hormone health, if you're trying to tackle losing body fat, if you have a really screwed up gut, you're going to end up just back doing circles, chasing your tail.
And I think that's probably one of the bigger mysteries nowadays in, women's fat loss and women's weight loss, where a lot don't fully understand that. Right. So it's, we go into fat loss cycles, fat loss phases, and trying to lose weight. And maybe you see some results, but it's very difficult. And there's a lot more things. And we're not going to dive into all these things, but that's one of the things that can cause a lot of resistance is if we do have a screwed up gut, if we are not digesting properly, we're dealing with that constant bloat, we're having these issues consistently on a weekly basis. No matter how hard you try to push or lower calories, it's going to cause those issues even more, right? And they're going to continue to be inflamed, and it's just going to be a whole dumpster fire, right? So you want to make sure you have an idea of, okay, if there's something wrong, if I do have bloat, if I do have potential GI issues, the first order of business should be, I want to go about fixing this first, because we have to. It's not up for debate that, you can try and fix it after you lose 50 pounds, because you probably won't get the 50 pounds off until you solve that issue first. So,
and I even have my own like personal experience with this. I've had it with hormones, and I've had it now with gut health more recently. I've shared a lot of it on Instagram, and we had Base Canyon coming up, and this was, maybe 8 weeks ago or so, when it kind of all started to become a little bit more apparent that, okay, this isn't just me eating gluten and getting bloated. Like, this is an ongoing issue. And obviously when you go to a music festival, you're wearing tiny little clothes and you're in big crowds, and I didn't want to feel bloated. And I also didn't want to feel, because my weight had shot up. Like 4 pounds for most people isn't a big deal. And I didn't freak out about it, but it was something to take note of, because 4 pounds in a week, I was like, why did I just shoot up 4 pounds in a week? And I just felt inflamed and puffy, and my gut was just like bubbly. I just felt very bubbly, and that's such an uncomfortable feeling. And it felt like no matter what I ate, I would just have issues. So I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to eat a lot less, which is what most of you guys do. You get afraid to eat, you eat a lot less. And I also, to be honest, was hoping to trim off a little bit in the weeks leading up to Base Canyon. And the harder I tried, the more difficult it got. And the more my body almost resisted it, I gained another 2 pounds. I was like, what is going on? More cardio, eating a little bit less. I felt more bloated. It was just, I was like, all right, this is a more serious issue. And thank God I had that knowledge. And so I pulled back, just accepted it. And actually the days leading up into Base Canyon, where I was like, screw it, I'm just going to eat a little bit more and try and avoid foods that are triggers. I actually felt a lot leaner, and my gut was a lot happier. So it's not always just about like eating less or fasting or cutting out food. Sometimes that can cause more issues.
Right. And it's like, out there nowadays, with us working in the functional nutrition space and addressing these issues, like typical person who doesn't know this or is like, by the book, by the research, we know we must be in a caloric deficit to lose body fat. However, if we do have these issues going on internally, the rate of your metabolism drops drastically, right? So it's like you could be, in theory, on paper, right, for your body stats where your deficit calories are, losing weight. But chances are, if you have those issues and you're at those numbers, you're going to be stonewalled, right? And then it's like, okay, do I pull even lower, right? We pull lower, we inflame the issues even more. We run into more problems, still not losing weight, right? So it's like, there's so much research out there on just the basic, healthy individuals that don't have any issues going on internally. Of course that works, right? But what isn't fully identified yet is like, what if someone has a completely messed up gut, unbalanced hormones, downregulated thyroid? What's the research on that, right? And that's where we live, and we kind of understand, because we know we can't fully get someone sustainable results without it being miserable unless we solve that, right? So it's like, that's really what has to, I know we're kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but
That's good though.
To tie a bow on that.
Yeah. And also even if like you decide, you know what, I just want to lose weight anyways, you ignore some of those issues going on, they're going to circle back. You're going to find yourself running into them again, because especially when it pertains to gut issues, they don't just go away on their own. Yep. And we'll talk about the difference between foundational things that you should be doing to remove bloat. And then if you had more serious issues, we won't go into, exactly what you should do, because that would take hours and it's also very nitty gritty. But I think it's important that we do also address the difference between I am bloated because of my diet and my lifestyle habits versus I am chronically bloated despite a good diet, despite positive changes that I've made in my lifestyle. So we'll kind of transition into that. But yeah, it can absolutely make weight loss a lot harder, and you can probably still lose a little bit of weight, but it's going to feel like you are literally going so up, like you're walking up the side of a skyscraper for some of you guys. And again, it's going to circle back. It's going to cause more issues in the future. Now we'll get into tips.
Yeah, now we'll get into some tips. Not to say all of you guys have those GI issues. Right. We just wanted to address that just because we feel like we can't talk about bloat without addressing that, especially with the work that we do and the space that we're in and what we see more commonly than not when someone's constantly feeling bloated. But for those of you that, chances are you might not have any GI issues, but you're just like, I kind of get bloated here and there and I want to get rid of it and it makes me uncomfy.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some tips that you can definitely start implementing today that don't require you having to go to a website and buy supplements or get a crazy fucking probiotic or, enroll into this MLM fucking gut health scheme. So nothing along those lines. These are all just straightforward things you can do today without needing anything else. So I'll kick us off with the first one here. This one is so simple, but if you're anything like me and you eat like a fucking rabid dog, this is going to apply to you, right? So slow down, chew your food when you're eating, right? Chew it to completion. Don't just take a bite of a burger and then throw it back and whisk it back with a Diet Coke like I typically do. So you want to slow down, chew that food fully, but also when you're eating too, don't try and be like up walking around, moving around, or just like rushed inside and throw food back. Like sit down, make sure you're in a very calmed and relaxed state. Eat your food.
Rest and digest, people. Yeah, it's a good one. The next thing that we have here is, and this one's probably, I feel like I've been able to resolve a lot of client issues just from this alone. And that is your fiber intake. And not just because some people are like, oh, I get a lot of fiber, and it's from fiber supplements. It's from really processed fiber like Quest bars and things like that. Definitely not the best. Like we want to make sure that, to back that up, we are getting our fiber from quality sources. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, things like that. When we don't get enough fiber, we don't have enough moisture in our GI tract and we also don't get, because there's soluble and insoluble, and we don't have to get too far into that, but basically we need insoluble and soluble, one to provide moisture in our GI tract, but the other to also create more form to our stools so it can pass through us. So if you have like very loose stools or you have very rock hard pebble stools, it could be as simple as your fiber intake. So get a variety of fiber. For women, anywhere from 25 to 35 is typically recommended. And then for men, typically anywhere from, I'd say like 35 to 45 is pretty decent. So yeah, definitely want to make sure we're getting in enough fiber. And
the next one is going to be, if you are getting bloated, especially after eating, pay attention to what food sources you're eating. If there's a specific food that's causing you to bloat, or you're noticing bloat coming through a little bit more often after maybe the lunch that you're eating or the dinner that you're eating, start to kind of pick and pull those foods out and see if that helps, right? So gluten is a big one that typically a lot of people experience bloat from. So whether you're eating a lot of bagels, breads, pastas, things of that nature, just see if, by taking some of that out of your diet and replacing it with something else, if that fixes it, right? So process of elimination there, but just pay attention to your food sources and see if there's things that you can take out that can reduce that.
I had the worst gluten intolerance, and I had this inclination, but I didn't actually act on it because it was that's the other thing is like, it's not always that you eat it and immediately you bloat. Sometimes it could be like you eat it and the next day your eyes are a little puffy or you have a little bit of a stuffy nose. There could be an immune response to it. And that's what was happening with me. So now that we know, I've cut it out. But yeah, take notes of even in your phone, like you ate a meal and now it's like, okay, I feel bloated. What did I eat? and become aware of that. The other thing is, and this can be extremely helpful, not just for bloat and reducing it, but also for like blood sugar levels. This is super important. Going for a 5 to 10 minute walk after you eat just to get things moving. So a lot of times we eat and then we just sit, especially for those of you guys who have a desk job, you just eat and then you sit there and your food's just like sitting trying to digest. So a little bit of some soft movement, like a light walk, is really good. You don't want to go for a run or anything like that, but a light walk can be helpful. And this will also help because, you have a spike of glucose from eating, and moving can help to just keep glucose levels nice and leveled out.
Lastly, now, if you are still experiencing bloat, distension after implementing some of these previous 4 tips, and like things are still being brought up where it's like, I'm still experiencing that, I'm still experiencing, the bloat, we can start to incorporate a low FODMAP diet, right? So this is going to be non-inflammatory foods. And this is going to be something that if you're going to embark on any sort of gut health protocol, this will be the style of eating that you do.
At least start with.
Start with. So, we want low inflammatory foods because more times than not, when we're dealing with gut health issues or bloat, there's a lot of inflammation that's involved there. Yeah. So we want to remove the inflammatory substances and things that you're throwing in your body and foods. That would be the next step to take, and especially a step to take past like the point of, okay, I just have some irregular bloat, to like, wait, I think there's something that's going on that's more than just me being bloated here.
Yeah, it's also a way you can find out your trigger foods, because it's not just low FODMAP isn't just like gluten and dairy and things like that. In fact, I think gluten is actually on, like some breads are on they're considered low FODMAP, but start with the basics, like removing dairy and gluten, and then the low FODMAPs, even like things like avocados, which are healthy and you shouldn't have to remove them forever, but they are high FODMAP. And some of it is just based off of the quantity too. So if you're having like more than one serving, it could be high FODMAP. So there is I think it's ibs.org. They have a list of low FODMAP foods and high FODMAP foods. And it's like one of the most detailed lists. And we send it to a lot of our clients to kind of take a look at that. So that could be something you become aware of. I actually had my stepmom who's been still dealing with a lot of acid reflux, and she has to take Gas X because it gets so trapped up in her esophagus that she struggles to eat. And no doctor had been able to help her. They just diagnosed her with gastritis and put her on a PPI. So she said for the first time, literally the other day, she did low FODMAP all day. And she's like, for the first time in, I cannot remember, I was able to eat without any sort of like pain or belching or anything, which was really awesome. So it isn't a forever thing, because low FODMAP is very, very, very strict. It's like no garlic, no onion. And who can live like that, especially going out to eat? So it's not a forever thing, but it's a temporary thing, again, to reduce the inflammation, get your body into a more responsive state to heal, but also determine what are those sensitivities. And then basically, once you heal through your gut health issues, you can start to slowly add back in those FODMAPs.
Yep, exactly.
So those are kind of more of the basics, guys. Obviously, water intake. One of the biggest, like literally the biggest thing that we didn't note here is stress. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have said, I'm chronically bloated. We've tried it all. And then they go out on vacation and they're like, I wasn't bloated at all. And they ate everything in sight. So sometimes it's just a stress thing, and that, or a hormonal thing, your thyroid's slow. So there's a lot of things that go into it. But for most of you guys, just making some of those changes will make all the difference in the world. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And past
so
that, yeah, I was going to say past that point, if you've done all of those things and you're like, why am I not seeing any progress? That's when I would consider getting some professional help. We read GI maps within our coaching protocol. I currently did one with myself. I did a GI map, and I'm working with a coach now. And that's why we're doing the flesh. And then we're going through this gut health, and he's doing it with me. So sometimes it's more deeper, as we've talked about. And that's where you want to get a test done just to see what is actually going on and how do you start to resolve it.
Exactly. So if you guys have any questions on this, on bloat, gut health stuff, or you listen to this whole podcast and like, damn, you guys brought up some pretty valid points. I'm doing some of those things. Think it could be something deeper. Don't hesitate to reach out to us as well too. Just shoot us a message on IG or something. We're always happy to open up a conversation, because we know, Audrey from her experience too, went and saw a gastroenterologist. Like, she had a GI map and went in there, and like, Audrey's very educated. She knows what she's talking about. She knows what she needs. So based off the GI map, she needed to go get a colonoscopy for one of the markers on there. However, when she brought it up to the GI dude, he was dismissed it, wanted to give her probiotics because he's like, oh, you traveled to Mexico.
No, an antibiotic, because she traveled to Mexico early July. And he's like, well, you have, you just want to make sure we can kill off these parasites. And Audrey was like, well, I just pulled a GI map a week ago and don't have those. And he's like, well, just be safe. And she's like, he didn't trust
it's data. So it's my shit that got read. Like, come on, man.
It's so frustrating. Like, he literally didn't even look at the GI map. And I think he literally didn't even fully understand. I bet you if I like gave that to him, he'd probably be like, so I don't know. It's different. I'm grateful I was able to get some tests done, but it is also a little frustrating because I'm like, I'm not taking this antibiotic. Right. So I do have a colonoscopy scheduled because the only thing that in the functional health space we can't fix is like a bleed somewhere in your GI tract or an ulcer. We can't fix that. Yeah, we're excited though. I'm going to get that figured out. And then we're going through this gut health protocol and we're just going to be healthy. We're going to be clear-headed, focused, and in our grind. It's exciting.
Clear eyes, whole hearts can't lose. You know what I mean?
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We will catch you guys in the next one.
Peace.